Hello, hello, and thanks for joining us on this very special pre-Thanksgiving AlphaNooner. Also, of course, for those celebrating out there, it is also Green Wednesday. Excited to spend some time today talking through some data, some interesting things. Of course, spending a little bit of time touching in on Green Wednesday, sharing some highlights, sharing some stats there. And then, of course, because it is pre-Thanksgiving, I thought it would be fun to put all of the charts data, or the majority of it, into pie charts to try to be on theme for the holiday. So yeah, we'll spend some time today kind of walking through some of the themes, some interesting highlights. I think just kind of, a way to enter your holiday season a little bit smarter. So hopefully some interesting data points for you out there. I know there's a lot to talk about over the Thanksgiving table, and this will hopefully be some fun facts that you can share and some easy conversations to have with friends and family. So if you're out there, one, thanks for joining as always. But two, if you have any questions, comments, you just want to say happy Thanksgiving, you're always welcome to put that in the chat, and I'll try to get to that as we go along. So yeah, I wanted to start off with, of course, the fact that it is a very special holiday for anyone who is either an enjoyer of cannabis or a follower of the cannabis investing theme, which is Green Wednesday, a big day in the world of cannabis where you are seeing it is effectively the second largest sales day for the cannabis industry following 420. Ultimately, the name comes from the kind of green splurge that comes from people doing their shopping ahead of the holiday so they can be fully stocked to have their favorite little indulgences through the holiday season. So a big one out there, seeing some great stats, and I'll definitely have an interesting chart to pull up here, but just wanted to kind of first get through some of the interesting stats related to the impacts, kind of digging in deeper, because I know people talk about it as a big holiday, but having some interesting stats to kind of back it up. So the first one that I thought was the most interesting is around roughly 50% of US cannabis consumers, which ends up being roughly 50 million people, are doing this stock up, this quick buy, the special trip to grab some of their stuff that they need. So a pretty big number, I think, ultimately was looking, and it seems like from Dutchie and FlowHub, they had some data that they had put out saying that the real-time national sales is running at almost 100%, I think 91% versus the average Wednesday. So that really shows the pop that you see. I think so far the data is obviously still coming out, but it is on pace to beat last year's record, which was, I think, 105 million single day total. I think the estimates from Headset and BDSA real time data were showing roughly between 118 million and 125 million. So we'll have to wait and see. But some really compelling sales out there. I think ultimately, if anyone is following any of their favorite cannabis companies out there, you will already have seen the sales. And I think the fun promotions, which is either like interesting giveaways or obviously just the deals themselves. But in terms of the impact that you see from those sales, I think one of the stats that was interesting was when discounts are around or hit that 30% threshold mark, there's a 75% increase in basket size, which is interesting. Yeah, so I think really, really solid there. And let me pull up some interesting data. Happy Green Wednesday, Mitch. Great to see you celebrating and see you here. So let me pull up some data and kind of break down where some of the spend seems to go through. Thought it was interesting to kind of break down kind of the form factors ultimately that are driving recently, because I think it does tell an interesting story. So just looking here, this is a pie chart again for Thanksgiving or Thanksgiving. Kind of a breakdown of where the sales have been previously. So I think looking at last year, seeing an increase, I think, between edibles and pre-rolls, which to me, while flower is still up there, I don't want to disparage flower. Flower is still doing great with 30% of the overall Thanksgiving sales. But I think those rises in edibles and pre-rolls, to me, maybe signal something around the concept of new people who are coming in who maybe aren't as familiar. I feel like people who have been in cannabis for a long time and really have that appreciation of the flower, maybe want to roll their own and want to, get really in it and have that process and kind of ritual, versus I think people who are newer to the space or newer to the plant, who are more likely to get what's easy, get kind of an introductory version, which I think for a lot of people can be edibles, which includes drinks in this case, because I think people are very familiar with alcohol and understand how that works. And then pre-rolls for people who are interested in cannabis, but maybe didn't grow up rolling their own, and all those things that are looking really ultimately towards convenience, which I think has been a big theme. We had Sam Brill on last week, And I think a lot of the conversation was definitely around what consumers are looking for right now. And unsurprisingly, across most categories in the US for consumers, convenience is important. And that seems to apply as well to cannabis. So I think interesting there. I will also say, great to see, I think, more and more coverage on kind of Green Wednesday, the trends there. I had seen Carl Quintanilla, which was fantastic on CNBC, kind of talking through Green Wednesday and had some guests on talking through the trends around alcohol, companies and sales and how that has impacted from people looking for alternatives, no hangover, fewer calories, all those things. So I think interesting to see there. And then I think interesting to even highlight the sort of fundamental story that is there and all of the popularity, all of the acceptance, kind of that growing trend for Americans, but still, I think some uh, not having that reflected necessarily in the companies just yet. And I think highlighting the fact that a lot of that does still come from that federal reform element, which we are hoping still to see. But yeah, I think interesting to keep it in front of investors' eyes. I think having that education, having that awareness is important, especially as we continue to hear chatter around federal reform. So I think an interesting time. I think great to see that being continually more embraced. And twice. Okay, nice, Mitch. Great to see. I've not seen the second one yet, so I got to check that out. But would love to hear what they covered. It does feel like it's just part of the theme now. I mean, it's hard to imagine 5 years ago, 10 years, well, 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, though, I really think seeing that be mainstay coverage. I think it is a reflection on how much things have changed in terms of normalization, sort of that acceptance of cannabis as a whole. So interesting stuff there in general. Also, yes, it is almost turkey time. Um, yes, it is almost turkey time, which I'm very excited about. Love the sides. Turkey's great, but I think personally I'm a pro sides person ultimately. But yeah, so I think a great holiday season. Very interested to see what the numbers actually turn out to be. I think we're still relatively early. Being on the East Coast, of course, we're getting numbers here probably faster than things will happen on the West Coast or even in the middle of the country. But curious to see. It seems like the sales seem pretty aggressive, which is great. I think there's a big focus on getting people into the loyalty programs and trying to get and build that trust in the brands, trust in the bud tenders who are able to provide that experience, and really, build that relationship that kind of keeps people coming back to a place that they feel like they are getting taken care of, their concerns are being heard, and ultimately they're getting the products that they want to get. I think that's the key thing, and that's a lot of the conversation when we're talking about hemp and cannabis. It's having that reliable experience that you can, count on, is safe, is trusted. I think all those things are important. So I think that is it on the cannabis side. I do want to talk more themes, but I did want to I feel like it's been a while. Let me do this so people can actually see. Um, it's been a while since we've done a giveaway that has been a book. So I figured it'd be fun as people are going to the holidays. I don't know if anyone is going to be like me and stuck in traffic for probably a few hours on the way home to do Thanksgiving with family. But I figured it would be a fun time to do a giveaway of Dan's book, talking about investing in cannabis. It's interesting. I think this was written quite a while ago now, but we often talk about how a lot of the small details might have changed, but I think ultimately a lot of the core principles remain the same. So if anyone has not read this and wants to read this, if you tweet me, which is MP at AdvisorShares and tag AdvisorShares, and share a favorite cannabis fact, if you have one, and the first person to do that, I will send you this book. It's some good reading, holiday reading. It's one that we kind of often give when we're at financial services conferences and talking with advisors. It's one that we point to kind of provide that education around the theme, what's going on, because I know that's a big part of our, push forward and trying to make cannabis really gain that, larger acceptance more from an investing perspective. So really making sure that advisors feel educated, they understand what's going on, they understand the catalysts, and they understand the players in there. So I'm putting that out there. Little giveaway, little fun. I want to use Eddie Elfenbein's joke of saying 90% off free. For anyone who doesn't subscribe to his newsletter, he was doing a fun tweet, I think earlier this week, saying he was doing a Black Friday sale, offering his great newsletter, which is he does a free one and a paid one, 90% off, which is he's got jokes and great insight. So yeah, if you're not following that as well, that one's a free one and easy to get. But moving on, more pie charts, bringing them up. Next one I wanted to cover, sort of talking on themes, is, let me see if I can pull this up. Talking on themes is not going into the specifics of them. I think we do that a good amount on these shows, and I think that's a great kind of get in depth, but wanted to kind of capture where we are in the year in terms of what themes have kind of been capturing investors' attention. So looking at this chart, this pie chart, you can see a lot of it, unsurprisingly, probably to most people who are following the market in any way, is definitely focused in on sort of the AI and robotics trend. Not a surprise. I think a lot of the dollars have been going there, both from an investment perspective and just from um, it, even the companies, I think, investing themselves in AI. So I think that's just been a constant theme. We do talk a lot about how I think most investors probably have a good amount of exposure, just kind of naturally, if you have, um, any broad-based index exposure, just because most of them, not most of them, most in the US, you have the S&P 500, have exposure to that kind of theme, just because they've really grown over time, especially if you have market cap weighted index exposure versus sort of equal weight. So I think most people probably have exposure. The one thing that I would point out again is sort of if you want exposure to more of the kind of picks and shovels element of things, how much cooling can really come into play. So I think there's a story there that we'll keep talking about, but I think it's important because for a lot of these trades and a lot of the AI element that to run ultimately requires data centers a lot of the time. And a lot of that requires a lot of cooling to keep running effectively. So if you're interested in that, one, we have more information and we've got a white paper on the website that you can find more information on. But for a more fun one, more current one, I think Noah Hammond is actually going to be on Schwab later today with Nicole Pedalides, which would be great at 2:30, talking about kind of the general market, what's going on high level, but I think also a little bit of what's going on with sort of the data center element and AI and cooling and all those things and sort of the picks and shovels play there. So tune in if you'd like. If you're following us on X or any of the social media stuff, you'll see a post there. We'll try to put it pretty close to when it actually starts, just because I know people are busy. But yeah, should be an interesting one. I think it's always great. And Nicole is fantastic. Had seen her at the Schwab Impact, and it's always great to see her. She's got some great boots. She had some very like furry, great boots on. Anyhow, so interesting there. I think also interesting to see kind of more of the pharma, biotech as well, getting in there. Still a lot of focus on GLP-1s, which is also interesting when you think about Thanksgiving and eating and all that stuff that comes along there. A trend that seems to be continuing pretty strongly, but also definitely seeing some uptick on the psychedelic medicine side of things. Again, that's one that we're going to keep talking about. I think with the wide range of people who seemingly need access to these treatments. We talk a lot, of course, about the veteran side of things, but I do think with even more complicated, I think Kristen Engelmeyer was talking about it on the MAHA panel that was in DC recently, but even more complicated disorders like anorexia or, treatment resistant depression, all these different things. It seems like, unfortunately, there is a glut still of need for drugs like these. Interesting to see as they're developing along, but definitely some names in the space that have done very well. And yeah, it'll be interesting to keep following that theme along. See a question which is in here, which is great. Let's see. Okay, I want to flash your question, Gary, but I'm trying to keep tickers out of this one. So I think you're saying with depressed prices, how have inflows been this week? And no, it is generally slow during this week. So that is true. Volume this is for cannabis, not to jump back around, but great question, Gary. I think for flows, I think things have been pretty quiet. Let me just get some specific data so I can look. I know, some amount of creates came in recently. But in general, I think around the holidays, especially the holiday week, things do tend to be a little bit quieter. I have not checked on volume. Let me see what we're looking at today, just so I can give you the most accurate up to date. Yeah, let's see. Of course, Gary, no worries. Let me see if I can pull this up. Yeah, let's see. Volume. So if I'm looking at sort of on the ETF side, yeah, if you look at volume, it is under 1 million right now. And sort of if you're looking at the average volume, of over 10 million. I think that tells you the story in terms of where things are. But again, I would imagine if I looked also in other areas, volume is also more muted. But of course, in cannabis, that could be more true. So hopefully that answers your question. If you have more questions, happy to answer as well. Also, brain dead, see you out there too. Yes, I think that is true on the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning side. It's been good overall though. If you zoom out, I think so. That's been fantastic. Anyhow, so those are the themes on that pie chart. I wanted to pull up two more, I think, as we're going through. Next one, focusing in on how people are actually getting exposure to these themes, to their investments in general, and kind of checking in on the trends there. So let me see. This was from, let me pull this up. This was a 2025 advisor survey that came out, I think, earlier this month. And I think great to see the story in terms of how strong ETFs have really become. I think, let me see. I think so far that they've surpassed, I think over $1 billion. I think it was like let me see the actual number. 1.14 trillion in inflows. So I think there's also projected growth further on the ETF side of things, and was looking at kind of why that is. Why are people moving to ETFs from kind of not older vehicles, but previous vehicles, or investing directly in stocks themselves? Not that you can't also do that as well. But the top 3 reasons that I think were interesting were top 3. Top 1, diversification, which was the 47% of people said that was why. Second one, ease of trading, which was 40% of people liked ETFs because of that. And then the third one, which I was very happy to see, obviously biased in terms of the active approach, but potential for better returns than a savings account or other investments. But I think it kind of ties into trying to get aggressive on finding solid returns and finding out performance, which I think ties in very well to the active story ultimately. It'll be interesting to see where we end up from here. I know there's a lot of different narratives out there in terms of how investors are viewing the current landscape. Seems like some people are, I think you mainly get the extremes where people are saying everything's fine, it's all great, everything's going to keep trucking. And then I think you also get people who are kind of stoking the bubble fears and kind of concerns around where we go from here. Maybe we're somewhere in the middle, I'm not quite sure. But either way, I think being able to, have an efficient vehicle is great. And I think was very excited to see that data. So thought I'd put it in a chart. I think really interesting and positive as well. And then finally, to wrap things out, I wanted to do a fun one just because I figured we're coming up on Thanksgiving. It's easy. So this is my pie chart, which is the chart of most popular pies for Americans. Top 1, shockingly, and I disagree with, pumpkin pie. That makes sense for Thanksgiving. I think that's when most people are having pies. I'm personally more on the apple pie side, but I'm in that 15%. I'm happy to live there. That's all good. Just wanted to end out with a fun chart. So with all that said, hope everybody out there has a fantastic, let me do this. Perfect. Hope everybody out there has a fantastic Thanksgiving. You get some great time in with family, friends, however you're celebrating. I think it's a great time to kind of reflect, understand, take some time to think about what you're thankful for. There's a lot to be thankful for out there. And so I wanted to also say, of course, thankful for you guys out there. I appreciate you tuning in. Hope you find this helpful and useful. And I think on Friday, we're going to do another quick live show, maybe a food review on Thanksgiving, post-Thanksgiving. So feel free to tune in there. But drive safe, enjoy the holiday, enjoy responsibly, whether you are alcohol, cannabis, somewhere in between, something else, or just totally sober, which is great. Have a great holiday. Really appreciate it. And we will catch you next time. Happy holidays.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.